Alright, welcome to a little bit of a storytelling. So something just happened to me in real life that I thought would make for a perfect video. So the background gameplay is going to be me using a completely random outfit. So everything is on random, all the wraps, all the accessories, everything. So let me start this story by saying I own my own house. This is my house, I don't rent it from anyone, it's mine. And of course, if you're new to my channel, I do have 3 kids as well. So the other day, my oldest son, Nolan, he had one of his friends spend the night, and I was out with my wife. So they were home alone. He's old enough, obviously. And he calls us, and he says, "Dad, I smell gas." And I'm thinking, what the heck are you talking about? Gas? So let me just say this. So if you own or rent your own house, you can have 2 types of gas. You can have natural gas, which is what I think most of you probably have, or you could have propane. If you have propane, then you have a giant tank in the back of your yard, and they make it so propane smells bad, like rotten eggs. We've had propane our entire life, but we just recently swapped to natural gas. So again, I'm used to that nasty rotten eggs type smell. But I'm not very familiar with how natural gas smells. I'm assuming it still smells bad, but I was not 100% sure. So when Nolan called me and said, "Hey, the house smells like gas," I looked at my wife and I said, "Gas?" And we both told him, well, get the heck out of there. Don't be sitting in the house if it smells like gas, because the whole thing could blow up. So we were on our way home anyway, so we got in there, and of course they're outside playing baseball like nothing's going on. I go inside, and I don't smell anything. Nothing. No rotten eggs, no natural gas, no nothing. So I was like, Nolan, what are you doing? And that was like 3 weeks ago. So fast forward to last week, I'm home by myself. I'm doing some editing for my videos. And I went down into the downstairs area. We have a finished basement, and it smelled kind of weird. Now, I should note this is where Nolan and his friend were playing, I think, Xbox at the time that they smelled this gas. So as I get to one side of the basement, the smell gets almost overwhelming. And I'm thinking, well, that's definitely natural gas. I mean, it didn't quite smell like rotten eggs, but it smelled like some kind of fume, some kind of gas. So I'm trying to find the source, because we do have a fireplace. And I was pretty sure that there is a gas lighter to it. So normally we put logs in there, we throw a match in there, we light it. But there's also this gas line that runs in there that you can turn on, and it will pump the gas into the fireplace, and then you just throw a match in there and boom, the fire's lit. But I've never used that, nor have I ever turned it on. So I checked that, and it was firmly off. However, that's where the gas was coming from. The smell was overwhelming right there. So again, I'm home by myself, just editing videos with my animals and my dogs. And I called my wife and I said, it smells like gas in the house. And she's like, well, you better call somebody. So I call around, and one person told me that it's actually the plumber that fixes a gas leak. The plumber. And I was thinking, what? How is that possible? Well, you can Google it yourself. If you type in, do plumbers fix gas lines? The answer will be yes, they do. So I call my local plumber, the person I've used before when I've had actual plumbing issues. And they said, you have a gas leak? You should call your gas provider, which is the electric company. So it's an electric and gas company combined. And I said, are you sure? Because I don't want to do that. They might make a big stink out of it, literally. And I don't know if it's quite an emergency just yet. And they were like, you should hang up right now and call them ASAP. So I was like, okay. So I called my gas company, and it was insane. It was like I was a VIP member. Okay, so I call. This friendly, real chipper lady answers, and she was like, what's your emergency? Like I was calling 911. And I said, well, you know, I smell a little bit of gas in the house, and I think it's coming from my fireplace. Is this something to worry about? Is my house going to blow up? And she instantly went into full-on panic mode. I mean, I guess that's her job, but it was intense. Like I was sweating just being on the phone with her. So she was like, sir, is there anyone in your house right now besides you? And I was like, well, just my animals. She said, get the animals out of the house right now. She said, are you in the area where the gas leak is happening? And I said, well, yes, I'm right now. Get out of that area right now. Get upstairs, close the door, get outside. You need to be breathing fresh air. And I said, okay, I don't think it's really covering the entire house yet. I mean, I could breathe just fine right here. You need to be outside right now. Do not re-enter your house. And I'm thinking, oh man, I have so much to do, so many videos to edit, and she wants me to leave my house. And I said, okay, well, what's the next step? She said, I am paging someone right now. We are sending someone out there to diagnose and hopefully fix this gas leak. Do not re-enter the house. So I said, okay, I'm outside the house. I'm with my dogs. can I call my wife? She's like, no, you cannot hang up the phone with me. You're going to stay on the line so I make sure you do not pass out, you do not die, and your house does not explode. Like, she was in full freak out mode. And she wanted me to stay on the phone the entire time. And I was like, I have things to do. I can't be on the phone. How long is this going to take? She said anywhere from 1 to 3 hours to get someone out there. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is ridiculous. So she tells me to stay on the line, and I do. And then somehow she gets disconnected. So since she was disconnected, I then hung up. And I Google it. And the number one thing they tell you not to do in a gas leak is call your gas company. And I didn't realize this until after, by the way, but they said online, I read a bunch of message boards and Reddit stuff and things like that, and they said if you call the gas company, no matter how small the leak, even if it's not a life-threatening leak, they will send somebody out there and they will shut you down. And by that, I mean turn off your gas. So gas does a lot of things for your house. The heat, the hot water sometimes, depending on what you have it hooked up to, the stove, the washer and dryer maybe, but most importantly the heat. And that particular day was freezing. I'd say like 35 degrees, which is almost snow. And I'm thinking, I have 3 kids. They can't just shut off my gas. And then in these articles I was reading, they said, yeah, if it's negative 20 out and you call about a gas leak and they come and there is one, they will shut it down regardless. They don't care how big the leak is, what the temperature is. If there's a gas leak, they're going to shut it down until you fix it. And they won't fix it themselves. They will have you call someone else, such as the plumber, and they won't shut it back on until it's verifiably fixed. So then I'm freaking out because, like I said, I don't think it was that big of a leak, but it was a big enough leak to smell the gas. So I was kind of torn. Should I have done this? Should I not? So I called my wife and she was like, yeah, you shouldn't have done that. You should have called the plumber. And I said, I did call the plumber. They didn't want to do anything with it. They told me to call the gas company. So sure enough, I'm waiting outside, and here comes the gas guy. And he was the meanest guy. He had to have been at least 70 years old. Comes traipsing up like I just ruined his whole life. Maybe he was on call, I don't know. But he comes up, and I was like, hey, how are you doing? Meanwhile, it's pouring down rain in the 35-degree temperature. So I was trying to be friendly. I was like, hey, how are you doing? And he looks at me, he's like, what do you want? Like that. I was like, oh my gosh, what the heck is this? What kind of greeting is that? What do you want, is what he said. And I said, well, you know, I'm smelling gas in the basement. And he looks at me and he rolls his eyes. That's it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the most unfriendly man I've ever seen in my life. I was like, come on in. I'll show you where it is. And he doesn't make any noise, doesn't do anything, just lurches behind me. So we get downstairs and you can still smell it a little bit. And he's like, yeah, I do smell it. And he pulls out this Ghostbusters, almost ghost detecting, what's that thing called that Egon always used? I don't know, one of those Ghostbuster devices, and he's moving it all around, and it's like beep, 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 just like the Ghostbuster thing. And he points it at the fireplace, and he looks at me, and he says, you have a gas leak. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I know I have a gas leak. I smell the gas. Is it fixable? And he says, you know what this means, right? And I said, we're going to fix it? And he says, no, I have to shut you down. And I said, what does that mean? And he said, I have to shut your gas off. It's cold out. I have to shut your gas off. You called me out here. I have to do this. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, everything online was 100% true. This guy comes out here, diagnoses the smallest gas leak he's ever seen, and says he's going to shut my gas right off. And I said, well, how bad is it? And he said, it's not even that bad, but it's a gas leak, and you called me out here, and I have to shut your gas off. So he showed me the reading on it, and I said, well, you know, I don't know what those numbers mean. What does that mean? And he says, well, think of it this way. If I let this go for about 30 days and you threw a match in here, it wouldn't do anything. It would just light the fire like it's supposed to. We see these all the time. Anyone that has one of these gas starters like this on a fireplace, it leaks. They don't install them right. There's no safety valve. I have to shut you down. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, so how do I fix this? And he's like, that's not my problem. Like, he was so mad that I called him out there in the first place. That's his job. Need I remind you, that's his job. So long story short, the fireplace was the culprit. There was a gas leak. It was so minimal that there was no risk of us blowing up, despite how the lady acted on the phone, despite him shutting my gas off. It was awful, and let me tell you, it costs a pretty penny to fix. So, moral of the story, if you ever have a gas leak, it's not anything to play around with. I think I did make the right call to call the gas company. What if that had been a true, huge gas leak? My house could have blown up and we all could have died, or the carbon monoxide could have killed us. So I think I did make the right call, and the fact that I did try to call the plumber first, but they didn't want anything to do with it, was kind of dumb. So if you do smell a gas leak, I'm not going to tell you not to call the gas company, but just make sure it's a true leak before you do. Otherwise, especially if you're in the winter and you have family or dogs or younger siblings or what have you, they will turn your gas off and leave you high and dry until you fix it. So there you go. That's how my house almost blew up. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. Like is always appreciated. And don't forget to use my Support-A-Creator code, which is tabortime.